My name is Nia, and I was born under the light of a full moon in the small village of Okuta, where the earth meets the river and the air smells of mango blossoms. From the day I took my first breath, the elders said my birth was not ordinary. A child born with the moon's light in her eyes, they called me, but as I grew, I learned that gifts from the heavens often carry burdens from the earth. I was the daughter of a humble potter, Mama Ife, whose hands shaped the earth into beauty. My father died when I was still a baby, leaving us with little but love and resilience. We lived in a small mud house at the edge of the forest, and though we owned little, my mother always said, "Peace is wealth too, my daughter." From the age of 7, strange things began to happen around me. When a lizard's tail broke, it grew back in my hands. When a bird fell from a tree, it fluttered again after I whispered a prayer. At first, I thought it was simply kindness rewarded. But the village healer, Mama Layo, saw something deeper. One afternoon, she came to our home, her walking stick tapping against the clay floor. "This child has the eyes of the river," she said. "The ancestors have chosen her. Bring her to me. I will teach her the ways of healing." My mother's eyes widened, a mix of pride and fear. To be chosen as a healer's apprentice was an honor, but it also meant walking close to mystery, where the living and spirit worlds touched. Still, she agreed, whispering to me, "If God gives you light, don't hide it." From that day, my life changed. Every morning before the sun rose, I swept Mama Layo's yard, gathered herbs, and learned the songs of healing. I memorized the scents of roots and leaves, the taste of bark, and the rhythm of incantations that calmed the sick. But my favorite lesson was silence. Mama Layo said, "A healer must hear what others cannot say. The silence between a person's words holds their pain." Soon the villagers began to notice my touch. When a child had fever, my hands cooled them. When a farmer was bitten by a snake, my prayers slowed the poison. They began to call me Nia the Gentle Hand. But with every praise came whispers. "How can such power live in a child?" some asked. "Is it truly a gift from God, or something darker?" Still, I did not mind. My mother said, "When people talk, let them. You keep doing good." So I did. One day, a little boy named Kato came running to me, his arm bleeding after falling from a palm tree. Tears streaked his dusty face. "Please, Nia, make it stop hurting," he cried. I placed my hand on his wound and prayed softly. Within minutes, the bleeding slowed and the pain faded. His mother fell to her knees, thanking me through tears. But as she walked away, I saw Adisa, the blacksmith's wife, watching me from a distance. Her eyes were sharp, calculating. Adisa was known for her envy. Her daughter, Said, had once tried to become Mama Layo's apprentice, but lacked the calm spirit required. Since then, Adisa had carried quiet resentment toward me. That day, as her gaze lingered, I felt a chill run down my spine. That night, Mama Layo called me to her hut. The firelight danced across her wrinkled face. "Nia," she said softly, "remember this. The brighter your light, the more shadows will try to surround you, but shadows only exist because light is present." I nodded, not fully understanding. The next months were filled with learning. I studied herbs that soothed fevers, barks that eased childbirth, and leaves that restored sleep to troubled souls. Mama Layo's wisdom was deep as the river itself, but one morning she grew weak. Her once strong voice trembled and her steps became slow. "The river is calling me home," she said one evening as we sat by the fire. "You must continue the work when I am gone." Tears filled my eyes. "Don't say that, Mama. The village needs you." She smiled faintly. "The healer's power is never lost, my child. It flows like water, from one to another. When I am gone, it will live in you." Within a month, Mama Layo passed away peacefully, surrounded by the villagers she had healed for decades. The drums of mourning echoed through Okuta. After her burial, people came to our home in silence, their eyes on me. I was only 16. "Will you continue her work?" they asked. I looked at my mother, who nodded gently. "Yes," I whispered. And so I became the new healer's apprentice, young, untested but chosen. For a while peace remained, the sick came, and I healed as best I could. The elders praised me, mothers blessed me. But in the corner of every praise, I could feel Adisa's eyes watching. Then one night, the chief's wife fell gravely ill. No healer could help her, and the chief sent for me. My heart pounded as I entered his grand compound, the scent of herbs and incense thick in the air. I knelt beside the chief's wife, her body burning with fever. As I laid my hand on her forehead, I whispered a prayer. Her breathing eased, her body stilled, and before dawn, she opened her eyes. The village rejoiced. "The young healer has saved the chief's wife," they shouted, but not everyone celebrated. In the shadows, envy stirred, and with it, the beginning of my greatest trial. The morning after the chief's wife was healed, Okuta village woke to celebration. Drums echoed through the air, and women danced with joy. Children ran through the dusty paths, singing, "Nia has healed the chief's wife. The river's child brings life." I stood quietly beside my mother, feeling both joy and unease. Mama If held my hand tightly. "You did well, my daughter," she said softly. "But remember, when the crowd sings your name, listen for the silence behind their voices. That is where truth lives." Her words lingered like a shadow on my heart. Later that afternoon, the chief himself came to our hut. His presence filled the doorway. Tall, proud, dressed in flowing white robes. He carried a calabash of palm oil, a bag of grain, and a single gold bracelet. "This is for your service," he said. "You have given life back to my wife, and for that you will be honored." I bowed deeply. "It was not I, my chief. It was the power that flows from God through the herbs." He smiled faintly. "Then may your God continue to favor you." He left with dignity, but his words spread quickly through the village. The healer, apprentice, had saved the chief's wife. Within days, people came from neighboring villages, some seeking healing, others just to see the girl who had worked a miracle. I treated them all with patience and prayer, using the herbs Mamalayo had taught me to prepare. But as my fame grew, so did whispers. One evening, as I returned from the stream, I overheard two women speaking behind the market stalls. "They say she speaks to spirits," one said. "I heard she uses the moon's light to call her power," said another. "Even the chief himself bows to her." Their laughter stung me more than any insult. That night I prayed longer than usual. "Father in heaven," I whispered, "if this gift is truly from you, protect me from those who misunderstand it." But even as I prayed, trouble was already rising. Adisa, the blacksmith's wife, had never accepted my place as healer. Her daughter Sade often glared at me with a bitterness that cut deep, yet I always greeted her kindly. "Peace be upon you, Sade," I would say. But she rarely answered. A week after the chief's wife's recovery, Adisa's only son fell ill. He was a strong boy, always running, always laughing, but suddenly fever gripped him. His body trembled, and his lips turned pale. The family tried every remedy they knew, but the boy only worsened. Reluctantly, Adisa came to me. She arrived at dusk, her eyes cold, her voice hard. "My son is sick," she said. "If your power is true, prove it." I hesitated. Her words carried mockery, but I could not refuse a sick child. "Bring him," I said gently. They laid the boy before me. His breathing was shallow. Sweat glistened on his forehead. I placed my hand on his chest, whispered a prayer, and reached for a mixture of neem leaves and ground kola nut, one of Mamalayo's trusted medicines. As I pressed the paste gently against his lips, I felt the fever begin to calm. Hours passed. The boy's breathing steadied, and by midnight he opened his eyes. Adisa gasped in relief, but instead of gratitude, her expression hardened again. So you can heal even my son, she said slowly. Then what else can you do? I looked up, confused. I only do what the herbs and prayers allow. She leaned closer, whispering, or what the spirits whisper to you at night. Before I could answer, she turned and left with her child. I sat in silence long after she was gone. The crickets sang, and the night breeze carried the scent of rain. But my heart felt heavy. I sensed that her words were not the end of something, they were the beginning. The next morning, strange things began to happen in the village. A woman's pot cracked while she fetched water, and she shouted, "This is not normal. Someone has cursed the well." A few others murmured in agreement. Then a man's goat died mysteriously. Another's child fell sick. By midday, the whispers grew louder. Since that girl started healing everyone, strange things have been happening, they said. Maybe her power is not from God after all. I tried to ignore it. But that evening, as I returned home, I found my mother waiting by the door, her eyes troubled. "Nia," she said softly, "the elders have called for you." My heart skipped a beat. "Why?" She hesitated. "They say they must ask questions about your gift." I swallowed hard. When I arrived at the village square, the crowd had already gathered. The air felt heavy. The moon was rising, casting silver light over the faces of my neighbors. The chief sat on a carved stool, flanked by elders. Adisa stood beside him, holding her son's hand. I noticed how pale she looked, like a woman who had been rehearsing her pain. The chief spoke. "Nia, daughter of Ifa, you have brought healing to many. But now there are rumors that your power may not come from the right source. We must ask, are your works truly of light or of darkness?" The crowd murmured. My knees trembled. "My chief," I said softly, "everything I do is in the name of the Creator. The herbs, the prayers, they were taught to me by Mama Layo, who served this village faithfully for decades. I have never done harm to anyone." Adisa stepped forward. "Lies!" she shouted. "You may speak gently, but your heart is proud. Ever since you came, strange things have happened. Pots break, animals die, children fall sick. And look!" She raised her son's arm, showing faint bruises where the fever had once been. "Even my child bears marks from your hands." Gasps filled the air. I stared in disbelief. "Those are not marks of harm," I cried. "They are from healing." But the villagers began to murmur among themselves. Maybe she is a witch. Maybe she sacrifices her power to heal. Maybe the moon truly speaks to her. The chief raised his hand for silence. "Enough. We will not accuse without proof. Tomorrow we will hold a test. If her power is pure, the spirits will show it. If it is dark, the truth will reveal itself." My mother cried out, "Please, my lord, she is only a child." But the chief's face was set. "Tomorrow, at sunrise." The crowd began to disperse, leaving behind whispers that cut deeper than knives. That night I lay awake, staring at the roof of our hut as rain began to fall. My mother sat beside me, weeping softly. "Do not be afraid," she said, though her voice trembled. "God will not abandon you." I took her hand. "If I must walk through fire to prove the truth, then I will." Outside, thunder rolled over Okuta, and I knew the dawn would bring more than just the test of my gift. It would bring the test of my soul. When dawn broke over Okuta, the village was already awake. Drums beat slowly in the square, not the joyous rhythm of dance, but the deep, heavy tone used for judgment. My mother helped me wrap my cloth, her fingers trembling as she tied the knot at my shoulder. "Whatever happens today," she whispered, "remember who you are. The truth does not need to shout, it only needs to stand." The walk to the square felt endless. Every step echoed with fear and prayer. As I reached the clearing, I saw the entire village gathered. Elders, children, the chief, and even travelers from nearby settlements. Word had spread. The young healer would be tested by the spirits. At the center stood the pot of truth, an ancient ritual known to all. A large clay pot filled with sacred river water sat upon a bed of firewood. The belief was simple. If one accused unjustly dipped their hands and the water boiled them, the spirits had judged them guilty. If the water remained cool, they were innocent. It was an ancient custom, one Mamalayo had spoken of long ago. "Never fear the truth, Nia," she'd once said. "The same fire that burns lies will never harm purity." The chief rose from his stool, his voice steady. "Nia, daughter of Ife, step forward. You stand accused of using forbidden power to heal. Do you understand the charge?" I nodded, my voice small but clear. "I do." "Do you confess to calling on spirits other than those of light?" "I call only on the Creator," I said, "and on the wisdom of the herbs he gave us." The chief turned to the elders. "Then by the law of our fathers she shall prove her innocence through the water of truth." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Some pitied me, others leaned forward eagerly, hungry for spectacle. Adisa stood tall among them, her arms crossed, her expression unreadable. The fire beneath the pot was lit, and smoke curled into the air. The priest began to chant softly, invoking the ancestors to bear witness. My heart pounded. Mama Ife cried out, "Please, let her speak first. Let her defend herself with words before fire judges her." But the chief shook his head. "The spirits will decide." As the priest's chant grew louder, the water shimmered with heat. I felt the warmth against my face. My hands shook, but inside something steadied me, a voice deep within whispering, "Do not fear." I stepped forward. The crowd fell silent. "Before I touch this water," I said, "I ask one thing, that truth be seen, not just in my hands, but in the hearts of all who accuse." The chief nodded reluctantly. "So be it." I knelt before the pot, closed my eyes and whispered a prayer. "God of my mothers and fathers, you see all things. If my gift is pure, let this water know me. But if I have walked in darkness, let me burn." Then I plunged both hands into the pot. Gasps filled the air. For a moment nothing, just silence and the hiss of steam. Then I lifted my hands. The water dripped from my fingers, cool and untouched. Not a single blister marred my skin. The crowd erupted, some in awe, some in confusion. "It's a trick!" Adisa shouted suddenly. "She has bewitched the water!" But before anyone could respond, a strange thing happened. The pot itself cracked down the middle with a loud snap, and the water spilled onto the ground, flowing straight toward Adisa's feet. The moment it touched her, she screamed and stumbled backward, clutching her arm. A red burn bloomed across her skin. The crowd gasped again. The priest stepped forward, his eyes wide. "The spirits have spoken." Adisa fell to her knees, trembling. "No, no, it cannot be." But the chief stood, his voice solemn. "Adisa, the truth has revealed itself. You have borne false witness against a child of light." She began to sob. "I was only afraid. Her power frightened me. I thought she would bring ruin to us all." The chief turned to me. "And you, Nia, your heart is clear. The ancestors and the Almighty have both vindicated you." But instead of joy, tears filled my eyes. I turned to Adisa, who knelt before me in shame. "I do not hate you," I said softly. "Fear makes enemies of those who should be friends. But healing is not only for the body, it is for the heart too." The chief watched silently as I knelt and touched Adisa's burned arm. The skin was raw, trembling under my fingers. I closed my eyes once more, and warmth flowed through me. Not my power, but mercy itself. When I lifted my hand, the burn was gone. A cry rose from the crowd. "A miracle!" Adisa fell at my feet, weeping. "Forgive me, child, forgive me." I helped her stand. "Let us both forgive," I said, "because truth does not live in vengeance." The priest lifted his staff high. "The river's child has been proven pure. Let her name be written among the healers of Okuta." Drums erupted again. Not the slow, heavy beat of judgment, but the rhythm of life and renewal. Children danced, women wept with relief. My mother rushed forward and held me tightly, her tears falling onto my shoulder. "You did not walk through fire, my child," she whispered. "The truth carried you over it." But as the celebration rose around me, my eyes caught something in the distance, a dark cloud forming over the hills, silent and still. The air changed, and the smell of rain turned bitter. The priest noticed it too. His smile faded. "There is still something unsettled," he murmured. "This trial may be over, but another one waits." And he was right, because that very night, when the village slept and the drums had quieted, the chief's messenger came pounding on our door once more. His face was pale. "Nia," he gasped, "the chief's wife has fallen ill again, worse than before. Her breath is fading." I looked at my mother. Fear flickered between us like lightning. "Come quickly," the messenger pleaded. "You are the only one who can save her." I grabbed my pouch of herbs, my heart racing. Just hours before I had been accused of witchcraft. Now they called on me again to heal. But deep down, I knew this was no ordinary sickness. Something unseen had followed us home from the fire. Something that would test not just my gift, but my faith itself. Night had swallowed the village of Okuta by the time I reached the chief's compound. The moon hung low and red, its light struggling through the thick clouds that pressed over the roofs. The drums of celebration were gone now. Only the sound of rushing wind filled the air, and somewhere far away a dog howled. The chief met me at the gate. His proud face was drawn tight with fear. "She has not woken for 2 days," he said. "Her breath comes and goes like a weak flame." I followed him inside. The hut smelled of sickness and incense. The chief's wife lay on a mat, her skin pale, her lips dry. 2 other healers from neighboring villages knelt beside her, whispering prayers and burning herbs. But the air felt heavy, wrong, like the sickness was not just in her body, but in the room itself. "Let me see her," I said softly. One of the healers frowned. "You should not touch her, girl. There are powers here beyond you." But the chief raised his hand. "Let her try. No one else has succeeded." I knelt beside the woman and placed my palm on her wrist. Her pulse was faint, fluttering like a trapped bird. I closed my eyes and listened, not just with my ears, but with the stillness Mama Leo had taught me long ago. Beneath the weak rhythm of her heart, I sensed something else, something cold, clinging, and ancient. It was not sickness. It was fear. As I prayed, a whisper passed through my mind, not from the living world. "You should not have touched what was not yours." I opened my eyes quickly, trembling. The healers had stepped back. The chief stared at me, searching my face for hope. "Can you help her?" I hesitated. "It is not only herbs she needs," I said quietly. "Someone has spoken death over her." The healers gasped. "Witchcraft!" one of them hissed. The chief's jaw tightened. "Can you undo it?" I looked at the woman again, her breath shallow. If the power that made her sick is human, it can be broken by prayer and truth. He nodded. "Then do it." I mixed a paste of charcoal and bitter leaf, placed it on her forehead, and began to sing. It was an old song, one that Mama Leo used to hum at dusk, a song that called on mercy and light. The melody rose and fell like the wind, and with each verse, the air seemed to shift. The firelight flickered, shadows twisting against the walls. Then the woman gasped, a sudden sharp sound, and her body jerked as if something invisible had passed through her. For a heartbeat, the entire room was still. Then slowly, her breathing deepened. Color returned to her cheeks. "She's waking," the chief whispered, falling to his knees. Her eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then clear. She looked at me and whispered, "Nia." Tears filled the chief's eyes. "You have saved her again. The gods themselves sent you." But even as he spoke, the flame beside us flared high, then died. Smoke curled upward, forming strange shapes that twisted into faces before fading into the roof. A cold wind rushed through the hut, though the doors were closed. One of the healers screamed and fled. The other followed, shouting, "The spirits are angry!" The chief turned to me. "What is happening?" I steadied myself. Something does not want her to live. Something bound to this house. He stared at me, bewildered. "What do you mean?" Before I could answer, Adisa appeared at the doorway, her wrapper soaked from the rain. "Chief," she cried, "forgive me for coming, but I know what this is." The chief frowned. "Speak." She fell to her knees. "It was me. I went to the diviner weeks ago when my son was sick. I begged him to make Nia's power fail, to show the people that she was not divine. He gave me a charm to bury near your wife's hut. He said it would draw away her healing and make her powerless." A heavy silence filled the room. The chief's eyes widened. "You cursed my wife," Adisa sobbed. "I did not mean for her to die. The diviner said it would only weaken her gift." The truth struck me like lightning. The sickness that had clung to the chief's wife, it was born from envy and deceit, a shadow cast by fear. The chief's hands trembled with rage, but I stepped between them. "Anger will only feed the darkness," I said. "If the curse came from earth, the river can wash it away." I took a calabash of water from the corner and began to pour it over the charm Adisa had confessed to hiding. The air filled with the sharp scent of herbs and smoke. As the water touched the ground, a hiss rose like a snake's breath, and the flame that had gone out burst back to life, burning bright and pure. The chief's wife sighed deeply and sat up. "The heaviness is gone," she whispered. The chief fell to his knees again, his voice trembling. "What power is this, child?" "It is not mine," I said. "It is mercy." He looked at Adisa, who still wept on the floor. "You will not be punished," he said quietly. "Let your shame be your correction." She nodded, sobbing harder. "Thank you, thank you." When I finally stepped outside, the rain had stopped. The clouds had scattered, and the moon shone bright once more. The air was cool, the earth clean. Mama Ife waited for me by the gate, her eyes full of tears. "I felt the storm pass," she said. It was as if the whole village breathed again. I leaned against her shoulder, exhausted. "It wasn't my strength, Mama. It was the same river that carried Mama Layo. It still flows." She smiled faintly. "Then let it keep flowing through you." But deep inside, I knew this was more than just a moment of healing. The trial was never about fire or water or envy. It was about learning that light must sometimes walk through the darkest places to prove it still shines. As we walked home through the quiet night, fireflies danced around us like tiny stars. The village was asleep, but peace had returned. The shadow was gone, or so I thought, because the next morning when the sun rose over Okuta, the chief himself came to our door again. Not in fear this time, but in humility. "Nia," he said, bowing low, "the council has spoken. You are no longer apprentice, you are now the healer of Okuta. And before all people, we will bless your hands so that no one ever doubts your gift again." Tears filled my mother's eyes. "Do you see, my child, the fire could not destroy what was true." I smiled faintly, though a part of me knew the journey was far from over. Power was never meant to lift one person, it was meant to serve all. And as the drums of celebration began again in the distance, I whispered to myself, "May my hands never forget why they were given strength." The morning of the ceremony dawned, with a sky so clear it seemed washed clean by unseen hands. From the hills came the sound of flutes and talking drums, rolling down into the valley like laughter. The whole of Okuta gathered in the square. Farmers, traders, hunters, mothers with their babies tied to their backs, all waiting for the girl who had once stood before them as an accused witch. Now they called me Nia the Healer. I stood at the edge of the crowd, my palms slick with nervous sweat. Mama Ife adjusted the beads on my wrist, the same ones Mama Layo had once worn. "You are ready," she whispered. The ancestors walk beside you today." When the chief appeared, silence fell. His robe shimmered in the morning light, and beside him walked his wife, strong and radiant, holding a calabash of water, the same water that had once judged me. He raised his staff and spoke. "There are many kinds of power in this world. Some destroy, some deceive, but the rarest kind, the one that binds all others, is compassion. Today, we honor a child whose compassion healed not only our bodies, but our hearts." The crowd erupted in cheers, chanting my name. My knees almost gave way beneath the weight of it all. I had healed others, yes, but this moment healed something inside me too. The doubt, the fear, the loneliness that had followed me since the day Mama Leo died. Two drummers began a slow rhythm as I stepped onto the platform. The chief dipped his fingers into the calabash and sprinkled water onto my head. "By the living river, by the light that never fades, we name you the river's daughter, keeper of life and truth in Okuta." He lifted my hands high, and the people cheered. Flowers were thrown, children danced, and women sang praises to the ancestors. But amid the celebration, my eyes drifted to the edge of the crowd, where Adisa stood quietly, her face half in shadow. When our eyes met, she bowed her head. Without hesitation, I walked down from the platform and approached her. The crowd hushed. "Adisa," I said, my voice gentle but firm, "come forward." She trembled, uncertain. "I do not deserve to stand before you." "Then stand beside me," I replied, "because healing belongs to us all." Slowly she came forward. I reached into my pouch and pulled out a small bundle of herbs wrapped in cloth. "These are from the riverbank," I said. "Use them to help others. Let your hands heal what fear once harmed." Tears streamed down her face as she accepted the gift. "You shame me with your kindness," I smiled. "Then let that shame become a seed. Let something good grow from it." The crowd murmured in awe. Even the chief bowed his head. As the drums grew louder, I turned to face the horizon. The sun blazed gold over the fields, touching every roof, every face. For the first time, I felt truly part of something larger, a web of lives and choices, love and forgiveness. But just as I began to breathe it all in, a strange sound rose above the drums, a roar, distant yet familiar. The ground trembled beneath our feet. People gasped as birds burst from the trees, their wings darkening the sky. "The mountain!" someone shouted. "The mountain is waking!" All eyes turned to the great hill beyond the village. Smoke was rising from its peak, a thin, dark column twisting upward like a serpent. Panic rippled through the crowd. Mothers clutched their children. The chief shouted for calm, but fear spread faster than words. I felt a chill pass through me. The old tales spoke of this. The mountain spirit, guardian of the valley, who slept for generations and woke only when balance was broken. Without thinking, I ran toward the river. The chief called after me, but I didn't stop. My feet pounded the earth as wind whipped through my hair. At the water's edge, I dropped to my knees and plunged my hands into the cold current. "Please," I whispered, "if ever you have known me, if ever you have carried my prayers, help us now." The river responded, not in words, but in motion. The current surged, swirling around my arms with fierce energy. Then from its depths, something rose, a light, soft and white, shaped like a woman's face. It was Mama Leo. Her eyes shone with warmth. "My child," her voice echoed through the wind, "the mountain wakes not in anger but in hunger. The world needs balance. You must calm it as you did the hearts of men, with peace, not power." Tears blurred my vision. "How?" She smiled faintly. "By reminding it of love. Go, and let the song you carry reach the earth itself." The vision faded, but her warmth remained. I stood, heart racing, and began to run again, this time toward the trembling mountain. The people of Okuta followed at a distance, drawn by the call of something greater than fear. When I reached the foot of the mountain, cracks had already formed in the soil, and smoke hissed from the stones. I fell to my knees, lifted my hands, and began to sing, the same song I had sung for the chief's wife. The melody floated upward, weaving through the air, soft and strong. The mountain rumbled, but with each verse its fury softened as if listening. The smoke thinned, the earth steadied, and then, slowly, the roar subsided into silence. The wind carried the last notes of the song down to the village. People fell to their knees in awe. When I opened my eyes, the sky was clear once more. I stood, trembling, the scent of ash and rain filling the air. From behind me came the sound of footsteps, the chief, my mother, Adisa, and the villagers. They surrounded me, silent. Then the chief spoke softly. "You did not just heal our bodies or our hearts. You have healed the land itself." He took the beaded crown from his head and placed it in my hands. "A true ruler does not wear this for power, but for service. Today, you have proven you are worthy of both." I stared at the crown, heavy with gold and history. Then I smiled and shook my head. "No, my chief, let it remain yours. The river needs no crown. It only needs to keep flowing." He smiled, tears in his eyes. "Then so it shall." As the people cheered and the drums resumed, I turned once more toward the river. Its surface shimmered in the sunlight, calm and endless. I knelt and whispered, "Thank you." For the first time, the wind answered, not as a whisper of fear, but of joy. And from that day on, the people of Okuta said that when the rains came, the river sang softly, a song of truth, of mercy, and of the girl who healed with her hands, her voice and her heart. If this story touched your heart, leave your thoughts in the comments and tell me what healing means to you. Then, hit like and subscribe, because every week we bring you powerful African folktales that remind us what courage, compassion, and faith truly mean. Moral lesson: true power is not in fire or fame, but in the gentle strength to forgive, to love, and to bring peace where others bring fear.